So if you haven't seen it yet, Discord has introduced threads. And what threads do is they allow you to basically create a sub channel that only lasts a certain period of time within a current channel in order to kind of break off a sub conversation without cluttering that main channel. Now, in situations that you might find this really handy is in things like if you have a sports channel and people are talking about a particular live event, you can create a topic for that so that people can talk about that live topic without cluttering the rest of that channel. Another big use case that I think a lot of people would find helpful for this is in game-oriented servers where maybe you have a channel for Valorant or Counter-Strike and there's a tournament going on. You can create a thread so that people can talk about the tournament without flooding the main channel, even if it's not a Counter-Strike or Valorant specific channel, it's just a game channel, for example. You can create a thread, people can talk about that tournament, people can talk about that certain match without really flooding the main channel. Now, the way I think it'll be used very well in my Discord server and its use case is when people ask for a recommendation or when someone's asking for help. We can create a thread for that specific conversation, whether it's recommendations, help with something, talking about maybe a new release on a product, and we can talk about that. It'll have a timed limit where it'll exist, and then at the end of that time it gets archived. You'll be able to see the archived threads, and it just declutters the main chat so that people talking about other things or other topics of conversation don't get basically washed away by a back and forth between a couple of people, for example. So we're going to walk through how to create a thread and a bunch of the settings relating to it, and we're going to use an example account that I have inside of my server, and I'll show you a particular example of how this would be used. So let's say someone goes ahead and they ask for help with choosing a case. Now what I can go ahead and do is I can change this to creating a thread. We can call this thread case help, and say we'll make it last 24 hours. You can change it to last 1 hour, and then if you have a server boost, you can do 3 days or 1 week. We'll go over the bonuses that the server boosts allow for threads, but if your server is unboosted, you'll get 1 hour or 24 hours. So we go ahead and create the thread. So now you'll see that the case help is basically like a subcategory within this channel. So you can click on here and there will be a back and forth. So we can talk and say, yeah, no problem. And we can have our back and forth. So now if we want to close this thread, you can click the 3 dots up in the top here and you can archive this, or you'll have it set to the auto archive. You can change the expiry for this. You can delete the thread. You can do a lot of great things. You can split view, so it'll show the thread and it'll show the main channel. And I can edit the items or the name of the thread because I have those permissions. So let's say we want to archive the thread. It has now been archived, which is really awesome, and it'll be gone now once we click off of it. But you can see the archived threads up at the top here in the archive. So this is really, really awesome. It's going to be very useful in my server for this specific reason, so that we can kind of declutter things when someone comes in and asks for help. We love helping people, but that can really flood a channel when you're going back and forth with helping someone. So this really helps declutter that. And then this stuff is available forever, and it's nicely separated, so we can be very detailed in the title of the thread. We can say what the specific problem is, so that if anybody comes into the server with that same problem, we can direct them towards the archives and they can find the solution. Now, if your server is a community server, you may not have threads available to you right away. And if you do get threads, they're not going to be enabled by default until August 17th. So check into your server, and if you see the threads early access here, you can go ahead and enable threads, and that'll allow you to use it before August 17th, and it mentions it up here as well. It'll be on by default on August 17th across the board. They're slowly rolling it out as they usually do with a lot of Discord features. Now for the roles, the important things you're going to want to see here are use public threads and use private threads. So this allows someone to go ahead and edit the threads, and this will do a lot of those things. Private threads are really good if you want to organize maybe a small meet with a small group of people and you only want certain people to be able to see those. Public threads are going to be the ones that are going to be used most often, I feel. But having these permissions allows someone to create new threads and do all of that from there. I wouldn't suggest allowing everybody in your server to create threads, because people may create threads that don't need to exist, and then you may be deleting a lot of threads to clear up the archive so that it's not all messy. I would suggest only giving these permissions to people like moderators, admins, and maybe a few trusted group of people. Depending on how you have your role set up, you can separate those accordingly. So as I mentioned, server boosting now extends to the new threads feature. So if you have a level 1 boost, you can extend the time of a thread to 3 days instead of the maximum of 24 hours. So you get 1 hour, 24 hours, and 3 days. At level 2, you get to extend that to an entire week. So you'll have 1 hour, 24 hours, 3 days, and 1 week. And with server boosting, you'll also have access to private threads. So I mentioned private threads in the role section, but you do not have access to private threads if your server is unboosted. So keep that in mind. So to join an existing thread, you'll end up seeing a thread icon up in the top right-hand corner. You go ahead and click on that and you can see the active thread. You can click on it and then you can join, which will then allow you to talk. As soon as you enter text, you'll automatically join the thread as well, and it'll add your name into the list on the right-hand side. So on mobile, it's just as easy as on desktop. If you want to do it from an existing message, you just go ahead and long press on the message, go to create thread, name your thread, so we'll call this one test, and then send a message, and your thread has been created. Now, if you want to manage your threads, again, top right-hand corner, you can go ahead, you can see your threads and the archives. If you long press this, you'll be brought into a menu where you can go ahead and you can edit, you can leave it, you can change the archive settings. If you want to delete the thread, you go ahead to edit thread, and then to the top right-hand corner, you can go ahead and delete it. Now, unlike on desktop where you can quickly create a thread beside the chat, on mobile, you have to actually go up to the thread icon again. You can go ahead and create a thread or just press the plus icon here to create a new one. And that's it. Like I mentioned, it's very straightforward. I think that threads are going to be a really great addition to Discord, especially in the more busy servers or servers that do have a lot of offshoot conversations like mine, where someone will come in and ask for help. This will help kind of declutter some of those channels and stop it from, someone coming in for help kind of pushing out messages that someone had put in earlier about something that they were new and excited about, because a lot of those things are back and forth, very quick, and they do seem to basically halt certain conversations. Now, what I think threads will also help do is it'll help people reduce the amount of channels in their servers, because, for example, I created a lot of extra channels because I was worried about people kind of ruining the flow of a conversation by talking about something else. So I created channels for those other things. But instead now, if I want to, I can go ahead and create these threads if people want to have quick offshoot conversations about something, and they can be archived and people can always see them. And I think the archives are going to be a really helpful tool in people coming into a server and looking for a certain answer, especially with the way that my server format works. I hope you found this video helpful, and if you did, I'd really appreciate it if you liked, subscribed. If you have any questions, comments, or feedback, feel free to leave those down below. I try to get to them all as quickly as possible and answer them as quickly as I can. As always, I stream on Twitch from Friday until Tuesday. Come check me out and say hello. I'm always more than happy to see people come over from the YouTube videos. It's really nice. People can go ahead and ask questions there, and as long as I'm not too sucked into whatever game I'm playing, I'll try to answer them as quickly as possible. Thanks again for watching the end of the video. Stay safe out there, and I'll see you next Friday.